Hello, grade sixes. Welcome to the next installment of the BFG. I hope you're enjoying it. We are moving on to the next chapter today. It's called The Blood Bottler. And I hope you enjoyed yesterday's chapter called Snozzcumbers. I know it's one of my favorites in the book, as well as my daughter Gabriella's. And now that you know her story about the BFG and the Snozzcumber chapter, that would show you why we have a love for this book. Alrighty, I'm going to switch to the document camera. Hopefully everyone is with us. Natalia, Rhett, Jackson, are you guys all there? Brady and Elias are probably in their robes. Okay, here we go, crew. The Blood Bottler. Suddenly, a tremendous thumping noise came from outside the cave entrance, and a voice like thunder shouted, "Runt! Is you there, Runt? I is hearing you jabbelin'. Who is you jabbelin' to, Runt?" "Look out!" cried the BFG. "It's the Blood Bottler." But before he had finished speaking, the stone was rolled aside, and a 50-foot giant, more than twice as tall and wide as the BFG, came striding into the cave. He was naked except for a dirty little piece of cloth around his bottom. Sophie was on the table top. The enormous, partly eaten Snozzcumber was lying near her. She ducked behind it. The creature came clumping into the cave and stood towering over the BFG. "Who was you jabbelin' to in here just now?" he boomed. "I is jabbelin' to myself," the BFG answered. "Pilfil fizz," shouted the Blood Bottler. "Bug swallop," he boomed. "You is talking to a human being. That's what I is thinking." "No, no," cried the BFG. "Yes, yes," boomed the Blood Bottler. "I is guessing you has snitched away a human being and brought it back to your bung hole as a pet. So now I is winkling it out and guzzling it as extra snacks before my supper." The poor BFG was nervous. "There's no one in here," he stammered. Now I have to show you the picture, crew. So here's the Blood Bottler. Pretty big. And imagine there's the BFG. So the BFG looks tiny compared to the Blood Bottler. And there's this nice little loincloth. So he said, no one in here," he stammered. Well, why don't you leave me alone?" The Blood Bottler pointed a finger as large as a tree trunk at the BFG. "Runty little scum screwer," he shouted. "Pilfling little swish figgler. Squimpy little bottlewort. Prunty little pog swizzler. I is now going to search the primroses." He grabbed the BFG by the arm. "And you is going to help me do it. Us together is going to winkle out this tasteful little human being," he shouted. The BFG had intended to whisk Sophie off the table as soon as he got the chance and hide her behind his back. But now there was no hope of doing this. Sophie peered around the chewed-off end of the enormous Snozzcumber, watching the two giants as they moved away down the cave. The Blood Bottler was a gruesome sight. His skin was reddish pink. There was black hair sprouting on his chest and arms, and on his stomach. The hair on his head was long and dark and tangled. His foul face was round and squashy looking. The eyes were tiny black holes. The nose was small, but the mouth was huge. It spread right across the face almost ear to ear, and it had lips that were like two gigantic purple frankfurters lying one on top of the other. Craggy yellow teeth stuck out between the two purple Frankfurter lips, and rivers of spit ran down over the chin. It was not in the least difficult to believe that this ghastly brute ate men, women, and children every night. The blood bottler, still holding the BFG by the arm, was examining the rows and rows of bottles. "You and your pibbling bottles," he shouted. "What is you putting in them?" "Nothing that would interest you," the BFG answered. "You is only interested in guzzling human beings, and you as dotty as a dog swoggler," cried the blood bottler. Soon the blood bottler would be coming back, Sophie told herself, and he was bound to search the tabletop. But she couldn't possibly jump off the table. It was 12 feet high. She'd break a leg. The snozzcumber, although it was as thick as a perambulator, was not going to hide her if the blood bottler picked it up. She examined the chewed-off end. It had large seeds in the middle, each one as big as a melon. They were embedded in soft, slimy stuff. Taking care to stay out of sight, Sophie reached forward and scooped away half a dozen of these seeds. This left a hole in the middle of the snozzcumber large enough for her to crouch in, so long as she rolled herself up into a ball. She crawled into it. It was a wet and slimy hiding place. But what did that matter if it was going to save her from being eaten? The blood bottler and the BFG were coming back toward the table now. The BFG was nearly fainting with fear. Any moment, he was telling himself, Sophie would be discovered and eaten. Suddenly, the blood bottler grabbed the half-eaten snozzcumber. The BFG stared at the bare table. "Sophie, where is you?" he thought desperately. "You cannot possibly be jumping off that high table. You, you cannot possibly be jumping off that high table. So where is you hiding, Sophie?" Sorry about that, So, this is the filthing, rotsome glubbage you is eating, boomed the blood bottler, holding up the partly eaten snozzcumber. "You must be cockles to be guzzling such rub squash." For a moment, the blood bottler seemed to have forgotten about his search for Sophie. The BFG decided to lead him further off the track. "This is the, okay, are you ready? Scrumdiddlyumptious snozzcumber," he said. "I is guzzling it gleefully every night and day." "Is you never trying a snozzcumber, blood bottler?" "Human beings is juicier," the blood bottler said. "You is talking rommy-tot," the BFG said, growing braver by the second. He was thinking that if only he could get the blood bottler to take one bite of the repulsive vegetable, the sheer foulness of its flavor would send him bellowing out of the cave. "I is happy to let you sample it," the BFG went on. "But please, when you see how truly glumptuous it is, do not be guzzling the whole thing. Leave me a little snitchet for my supper." The blood bottler stared suspiciously with small piggy eyes at the snozzcumber. Sophie, crouching inside the chewed-off end, began to tremble all over. "You is not switch fiddlin' me, is you?" said the blood bottler. "Never!" cried the BFG passionately. "Take a bite and I'm positive you will be shouting out, 'Oh, how scrumptious this wonder veg is.'" The BFG could see the greedy blood bottler's mouth beginning to water more than ever at the prospect of extra food. "Vegetables is very good for you," he went on. "It is not healthsome always to be eating meaty things." And that is where we will leave off for today, guys and ladies. I hope you enjoyed that for today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.